Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to another edition of Triad Today, coming to you once again from the beautiful Senior Botanical Garden in Kernersville. We'll tell you more about them later on. And later on is when the weird old round table gets together. We'll get into all sorts of controversial topics, so stay tuned for that. But where we want to start is talking about a very special, very unique mentoring program that comes to us from the good folks at Alamance Community College. With me is my old friend who's been on the show many years before, Dr. Thomas Barksdale. He is a success coach at Alamance Community College. Welcome back, young man.
Thank you, Jim. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Now, I keep hearing about this male, I'm going to get it right, male minority mentoring program. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is that and what are the objectives?
Well, Jim, good to see you again. So the Male Mentoring Program at Alamance Community College is a program where we have wraparound services. We believe in helping young men, minorities who identify as minorities, with retention, graduation, feeling of connection. We know what has happened in the pandemic. So certainly this global pandemic has had students in isolation. Remote learning has been a challenge. And so at Alamance, we believe in connection and helping our minority males successfully graduate.
Yeah, and I don't mean this to be any kind of a weird, it's going to sound weird, but everybody has different problems, as you said. Do black guys respond to black mentors better and white guys respond to white mentors better in certain situations? Is that sort of a thought behind some of this?
Jim, that's a good question. Here's what we know. Young people of all backgrounds, all races and backgrounds respond to connection. And so young people, Jim, from elementary through college know when young people, when adults care about them.
Right.
So it doesn't matter really the race, it matters your heart.
Yeah.
And so at Alamance, we have phenomenal faculty and staff that surround all our young people. I just happen to be working with minority males. So really, Jim, people know when you care about them. And
Absolutely.
Certainly college students do as well.
Yeah. Now, in general, why is mentoring so important?
Well, my second book was on mentoring, Jim.
That's right.
And I thought about Homer and the Odyssey in Greek mythology, where this Trojan war hero went off to war, Jim, and he entrusted his son to a young man named Mentor. Right? And so that's where we first hear this word mentoring. So really all it is trusted care. And certainly on the college level, our young men need trusted care. At ACC, we believe all our young people are important, but minority males do come with different circumstances that you alluded to.
Right. And now let me backtrack a little bit, not to make this negative, but you and I were exchanging some emails on this. You go back and think about the George Floyd incident. You think about some of the other things that have happened. Did that have an impact, or did it cause problems, or did it make what you do more difficult in terms of mentoring?
Jim, I appreciate that question. We know there's a history in our country of racial reckoning. And so when the George Floyd case happened, I call it twin pandemics. You had COVID-19 and racial reckoning in our country. And so what I try to do with our male mentors and mentoring program is keep understanding our young men to know that, listen, we believe in change talk. So I use a counseling technique called motivational interviewing, Jim, where I listen for change talk. We don't believe in victimization, right? All of our young people must harness their own greatness and rise above the circumstances. So yeah, it made things difficult because that case and other cases, Jim, were horrible. It produced trauma. As you know, we're in a mental health crisis. So
absolutely.
We have to connect with our young people.
Trauma, mistrust, all the sorts of things that go along with those things. Sometime I want to get you back and just talk about your books, which I think are fascinating as well. Can you still get those on Amazon?
You can. Thank you. Yes, you can. I would love to, Jim.
You can type in your name and Dr. Barksdale and they can find out. But for right now, we're talking about mentoring. You can call 506-4418 or you can email Dr. Barksdale at tlbarksdale925@alamancecc.edu. That's up on screen right now. And also, when you come back sometime, I want to talk about people that might have mentored you.
Sure.
We'll do that.
Love to.
Will you do that sometime?
Love to, Jim. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, and let's go up in the air for a few seconds and talk about drones, shall we? And we do that with two guys that are always flying high with all this information, and on my immediate right, a good buddy, Hank Henning, Director of Local Government Community Relations for Duke Energy. He brought along a special guest, Jackson Rollins, Director of Unmanned Aerial Systems. Sounds like we're going to talk about outer space. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Hank, let me get you to kick it off, then I'll go to Jackson. Why did you think it was a good idea to bring Jackson here? Although we like him, I mean, what is it he's going to talk about?
Well, really, we're doing a lot of interesting things at Duke Energy to really improve our operations and responsiveness during storms and so forth by utilization of technology. And I just think it'd be really interesting topic to learn about how we're using drones of all things to really improve those.
Until you sent me that email. Seriously, I had no idea that you guys were doing that. So that brings me to Jackson. Why did you guys create this unmanned aerial system?
Sure, good question. So I think we have to start with a very important group at Duke Energy known as Emerging Technologies. And the goal of that organization is to look at technologies that are 3 to 5 years from maturity and how they may be able to benefit our operations and essentially benefit the customer at the end of the day.
Give me an example. We'll get to customers in a minute. Give me an example of how this drone technology, it's okay if I call it drone, even though it's unmanned, how it benefits you guys as a company.
Sure. So we really look at 4 pillars, if you will, of how we might utilize drones to replace a specific work method or perform work at the company. The first being, can we perform this work more safely using drones as opposed to the traditional work method? Another one is, can we do this faster, which in turn saves the company money? So think about performing an inspection at a solar farm. We can do that much more quickly with a drone than walking around on 600 to 800 acres. We look at, can we collect better data to inform better decisions by a maintenance crew or a technician in the field.
And some of these things you guys do are on our behalf as customers. The linemen and other guys are doing work that's dangerous, it's tricky, and you have to be specially trained for that kind of thing. And there's lots of things that you guys do on behalf of customers. So it's bound to be good for safety and efficiency, like you're saying. But now what about from the customer side? How does that, I could be sitting here watching the show and saying, I'm glad that you and Hank were on the show and everything, but what does it matter to me if they got drones?
Sure. So it's a good question, and maybe not very intuitive, but any of the work that we do to inform better maintenance decisions or improve reliability of a generating station or a transmission facility or a distribution facility really impacts the customer by keeping the lights on when a storm comes through, or really performing that maintenance that's going to keep a generating station running where otherwise it may not.
Yeah, because the people, that's when we customers really know, we feel it. Like if there's a big storm that comes through, the power's out, we're always complaining, oh, how long is it going to be? Well, you guys have improved that immensely, but you're saying with the drone technology, it could even cut those outages down even more, or am I misinterpreting that?
Sure, we're really looking at before the storm, utilizing the drones to, maybe it's a vegetation issue on a transmission line, where we're informing the vegetation specialists within that organization to trim or cut trees that during a storm may have fallen on the line and created an outage. So we really look at it as a preventative measure more so than in the moment.
We have a few seconds left. We didn't rehearse this or anything, but I'm just curious. You talked about technology and things in the future. When are we going to see some Duke Energy drones flying around as a typical site, working on things?
It's a good question, and we have regulations that in some way prevent that today, but the regulations are improving and getting to the point where we could have remote operations, and that could be at a substation or a generating site where an individual may be sitting in Charlotte or Raleigh and controlling a drone at a site. But that's a few years away.
And of course, Hank, prior to your life here at Duke Energy, you're an elected official as well in the area. And so very quickly, in a couple of seconds, this is going to be good for a lot of people.
Absolutely. It's going to improve the way we conduct our business at the end user at the end of the day, going to keep the lights on.
That's a great program. Up on screen, Duke-energy.com and also generatingprogress.com. Hope you'll check that out. Guys, hope you'll come back when we get all these things flying more frequently, and we'll talk about it.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, and one of the most important things we can talk about and have on this show from time to time is workforce development. Very, very important topic. And we have a first-time guest to the show who's going to help us with that. Next to me is Russell Dye, Regional Manager of Workforce Development for Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. And thanks for being here, Russell.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You guys are into all sorts of things and helping people. Partnerships are important, aren't they? And one of the partnerships you have is with Forsyth Tech. And in what ways does that help better serve the community when you team up like that?
Well, I think from a funding standpoint, a lot of funders are more apt to provide funding when you are partnering with an agency such as Forsyth Tech. Forsyth Tech is a phenomenal partner of ours. We've worked with them for a very, very long time. One of the biggest ways we work with them and support them is we're actually able to facilitate a lot of their courses out of our building located at 2701 University Parkway.
That's right.
And so that is a huge source of our partnership and a way in which we love to collaborate with them. We also do and have done events pre-COVID. We were able to do some events with them, and we are looking at revisiting that later on this year.
Yeah, later on, I think you told me in an email you're going to do another big resource fair.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, we don't have the details yet on that particular one, which may be December or whatever, but in general, what do resource fairs do for people?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jim. So the days of us doing those large job fairs are kind of beyond us. Anybody can go anywhere and find a job these days, of course, but one of the biggest things we want to do is we want to provide resources to our participants and let them know what's available to them with all the other barriers that they're facing. And so this resource fair is a concept right now, but one of the things we're looking to do is provide different outlets for people to support their needs, whether it's financial, whether it's housing, things of the sort. We want to be able to provide that under one roof.
And those are, even when there's not a resource fair or some special event, you guys in workforce development, you're doing this, just about 24/7 in your job. You're trying to help people all the time
Absolutely.
with various services. And you talked about barriers, like an older person, maybe if they need computer skills, or you try to help people get ready for jobs, right?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things, you bring up a great demographic of people, are more seasoned workers. They are.
That's the first time I've been called seasoned, and I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, our more seasoned workforce is coming in looking for skill development. So you hit the nail on the head. So when you talk about the digital divide, so these individuals who may not be privy to all of the technological advancements that have happened over the course of a few years, we've seen a lot of people who have retired who are now going back into the workforce.
Right.
So there's a skills gap there that we do work to support and provide skills.
Let's go from skills gap and seasoned people like myself. Let's go the opposite way to the kids in schools. Now, I understand you have something coming up on September 8th with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are supporting them and working alongside them to have what's called our back to school kickoff. And the back to school kickoff is designed to really cater towards our OCS population, that is occupational course of study. So we are partnering with the school system here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County to help those individuals get exposure, really is what it's all about. So we're helping them get exposure to different resources, occupations, and I'll even be facilitating a session on dressing for success.
How about, well, that's important. That's important.
It's very important.
We have a few seconds left. What's gratifying to you about your work?
Just being able to be a witness to the change that we are making on a day-to-day basis, when you have folks that come back in and tell you about that job they got and tell you how grateful they are for the services that you provide them, I think that is so gratifying and so rewarding, and what keeps me getting out of the bed every morning.
Well, I'm glad you do get out of bed in the morning because you're doing a lot of great stuff for the community. Up on the screen, Goodwill, NWNC, stands for Goodwill, NorthwestNorthCarolina.org. You can also go to jobs@goodwill.org and find out information about that. Russell, keep the good work up.
Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, let's talk about joint care. And we do that with a very special guest. Dr. George Adam Flowers is orthopedic surgeon at Atrium Health, Wake Forest Baptist. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
We hear about orthopedics a lot, and just very, very quickly, when somebody heard me just say joint care, there are a lot of different things that can happen under the field of orthopedics. What do you mean joint care?
I think oftentimes when we're talking with our patients, or I'm talking with my patients about joint care, a lot of times there's a lot of aches and ohs and oi-oi-ois that they're coming in to see me, which has gotten them to the point where they're listening to their body. But joint care can cover a bit more of a gamut of even just generalized routine care, maintenance care, maintaining flexibility. Nutrition now is actually starting to be added into the management of joint care. I'm
Really?
sure people have heard about the inflammatory diets and things in your body that you think that you might ingest that may cause you to enter into an inflammatory
So
state.
that's a real thing. That's not just something we see on social media,
Well,
but there
yeah,
are
and
foods.
there'll be some, some literatures that come out and that'll, be associated with that science. But so joint care kind of goes beyond the gamut of what you think about when you hear about orthopedic surgery. Most people think about the surgery part,
Right,
and that's
right,
kind of
right.
more the deterrent. I don't want to go see anybody from an orthopedist because they're going to want to do surgery on me.
Yeah.
But it's can be routine maintenance as well.
Now, what are some of the more common joint injuries and conditions that you personally see?
Well, I'm a sports medicine specialist, so I think we were chatting it up a little bit before we got on about football, and this is a wonderful time of year. And I see a lot of athletic injuries. I see athletes and I see weekend athletes that sprains and strains of ligaments and supportive structures around joints, that when you have those types of injuries, those things will manifest as joint pain because now the supporting structures aren't there to support the joint.
But that can also happen to an old guy like me just doing some yard work at the same time. So at what point, if we think we've done something, do we say, well, it feels bad a little bit, I'm not going to the doctor yet? At what point should we come see you, though?
Well, I would say come see me all the time because I'm a nice guy. We can sit around and joke, but I'll tell you what normally ends up happening is there's usually differences. Women have a tendency to listen to their bodies a little bit more than men do, and so they'll come and see me, and I'll see a woman, we'll sit down, and a lot of times they're kind of early on in whatever's going on. I know if I have a man, if you come in and you're sitting across from me, let me tell you what's already happened. You've already ignored yourself. You've tried to do other types of treatments. You've already tried to do stretching. You've tried to continue to just tough it out. You may have even rubbed some dirt on it.
Did you talk to my wife before you came over here? That's exactly what happened to me one time before.
The dirt?
No, that's right. No. But so men are a little bit more stubborn about that. Now, do I need a referral to come see you or any kind of a joint specialist or orthopedic specialist? Do I need to go to a doctor first and then get a referral?
Well, I would tell you check your insurance plan. A lot of times those things are built into your agreements that you have with your insurance. But for the most part, from our point of view, our doors are open for the area of specialty that we provide as far as, again, your aches and pains, sometimes emergency care. We've been talking about it from the venue of joint care, but if you break something or something is really swollen, that may be a visit that we just end up seeing you because of an emergency.
Before we run out of time, I'm curious when I meet somebody for the first time on the show, what or who led you to want to go into healthcare?
Into healthcare?
Into medicine, yeah.
Into medicine? Well, I don't know. I thought about that. I just remembered very early on, like at 7 years old, sitting with my grandma and saying I was going to be a doctor. Now, specifically going into orthopedics, I think I could address that a little easier because when you go into medical school, we can usually start to put a ruler. These people over here address life in a certain way. These people over here address life in a different way. Surgeons and medicine folks. And then just my propensity to want to address problems by hitting it with a hammer probably led me to orthopedics.
That's great. And 7 years old, though, you thought you might want. That's pretty neat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was your grandmother pleased to hear that?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I'm pleased that you turned out to be in that field because you're doing a lot of great work. Up on screen, wakehealth.edu, and you can click on specialties from there and get more information about the great work that folks like Dr. Flowers keep doing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, just about time for the roundtable, but a quick shout out to our good friends here at the Senior Botanical Garden in Kernersville. Beautiful place to visit. They have a great website. You can have your events out here. You can have anything you want to. You can even wear white after Labor Day, as Ogie is doing right now. Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster journalist. And of course, Rosemary Plybon is here, and she is the Director of Communications for Shift Ed, formerly Say Yes Guilford, and we appreciate her being here. And Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants. All right, guys. Some companies now want to pay employees less salary for working at home because employers say that working at home accrues benefits like spending less on clothing and gas and having more time with family. Guys, do you think working at home should be considered a benefit? And are you okay with paying those employees less money? Ogie?
That's lame. That's about as lame as it gets. I mean, there's so many distractions at home. I work from home, and I tell you, you get distracted a lot more at home than you do in an office.
Rosemary, what do you think?
I would say for some people there are advantages, and for some it's definitely a bonus to work at home, but not everyone.
But you pay. But they make the point. You pay less for gas. You pay less for,
Yeah, you spend your money how you want to spend your money. It doesn't change what your salary should
Keith
be.
Granberry.
The answer is no, you should not be paid less. And if you have a product or a job and you're doing your job, you should get paid for that job, not less.
All right. Last year, as soon as Governor Cooper said it was okay and safe for kids to go back to school, parents who had kids in the Montessori School of Durham still refused to let their children go back, and they refused to pay tuition, which they agreed to in a contract. Not surprisingly, the school sued the parents. So far, they have won some of the judgments. The parents are appealing the case. Guys, who do you side with, the private school or the parents? Ogie.
I think unless they signed a contract with the school, I would
Apparently
side
they
with
did.
the
Apparently they
parents. Well,
did.
if they signed a contract, they're kind of on the hook for it. They might have to abide by it.
I agree.
Rosemary?
I think they're on the hook for it.
Yeah, even though they don't send it, but that's their choice.
But that's
In
their
other words-
choice, right?
Keith.
I disagree with both of them. I think that if there's a reason that you're not sending these kids back, is it because of COVID?
Yeah.
Then that's a circumstance that's totally out of control, and it still has not been handled. COVID is still here. So I think that they should not have to pay.
All right. Most school systems have a policy against the use of tobacco on campus, but a Minnesota school district just voted to allow Native American students to, quote unquote, smudge. Now, as far as I can tell, smudge is a sort of a religious cultural ceremony by some Native Americans, which involves burning herbs and tobacco. Here's the question. Are you okay with letting some students burn tobacco for religious reasons while others are banned from smoking altogether? Ogie.
Well, I think given the fact that we basically destroyed their whole culture, I think one of the last vestiges of their tradition, we could honor that and give them a pass on that. So
All
at
right,
least we could
you do a lot with education, Rosemary. How do you come down? Because it could become an issue in North Carolina. We're a tobacco state. What do you think?
Well, and you definitely can't infringe on their religious rights when they're at school. What I don't understand about it is why it needs to be done at school, and that I need some clarity on that to really make a decision.
That's a good point, Keith.
I think you smudge at home. The kids are there to learn, and if you're not allowing tobacco, you're not allowing tobacco. Do it at home, after hours. Why are we using that at school?
All right, good point. Now, critics are now lashing out at producers of the new Lord of the Rings series because non-white actors are portraying characters who are white in the novel. Meanwhile, we're still hearing criticism about Hamilton for casting black actors to portray famous white men like Washington and Jefferson. Are you guys okay with this kind of artistic license, or is it a weird kind of diversity that serves to confuse our children about history and literature? Ogie Overman.
What was that movie, Shakespeare in Love?
Yeah.
Where back in those days, men had to be
Portray
portray
women,
women
yeah.
in costume. So
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. I mean,
It
that's
goes all the way
absurd.
back to the Romans
It's
and
totally
castratos
absurd.
and Rosemary.
I am 100% okay with it, I think and embrace it 100%.
Keith, what do you think?
Since the first human was from Africa, I think that we should look at how people are using racist issues to deal with characters. Black people have been throughout history, and they've been blackwashed out of history. Look at history books. How many black people do we see in many of these history books?
Not enough. And one of my heroes growing up was George Washington Carver. But the point is, you don't want George Washington Carver portrayed as a white guy in a play.
But Lord of the Rings, how do we know there were not black people in this?
I don't read
We
those
don't know
books
anything
anymore.
We don't know.
I
We don't know.
Be purple as far as
But
I'm
I do
concerned.
know that black people are all throughout the world and been doing things, so they have to be part of this process. So I don't know why we had Donald Trump people protesting.
All right.
Against
Voters in,
issues.
voters. Thanks for those comments. Keith, George Washington, Granberry.
That's right.
All right. Well, we'll save this up. I know what I was going to ask you. Finally, America seems to be crazy over mustard. Last month, Oscar Mayer announced a new bologna and mustard popsicle, while French's introduced mustard-flavored donuts. Guys, have you ever eaten mustard popsicles, or do you plan to eat mustard donuts? Ogie.
Under no circumstances will I ever eat mustard, any of that stuff.
What do you think,
I
Rosemary?
like mustard on my sandwich. BOLOGNA.
Yeah, bologna, but not on a popsicle.
I don't think so.
Mustard donuts, mustard popsicles, Key?
No, I would never eat mustard on a popsicle or a donut. Not even on a hot dog. I don't even like mustard.
Okay. What's your real opinion? All right, that's all. Thank you, George. Whatever that is. All right, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. Scientists have now discovered that spiders have the same sleep habits and patterns as humans, which also means they have trouble falling to sleep sometimes, usually because the spiders stay up too late on the World Wide Web. I don't know what that
I think
means.
that was kind of good.
All right, for all of us here at Triad Today, we'll see you next week for our 900th episode. See you.